Cabinet, which will be held as a hybrid meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as is practicable following the meeting. Everyone participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting either from the Council chamber or from remote locations. Please can everybody ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode, and I have checked my own device. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their microphones and where remote their cameras on at that point, but I would ask that with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times to keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference and to ensure the connection remains as stable as possible. Whether in the chamber or remote, if any members or officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen hand at the top right hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to you in the order I receive requests. Please lower your hand once you finish speaking. Chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting and will be monitoring the use of microphones throughout the meeting, and where necessary will mute those not being used. I would also ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. Officers too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use, please. I will now proceed to agenda business. And the first item is to receive apologies for absence from members. Councillor Good, please.
Thank you, Leader. Just to let everyone know that I will need to leave slightly early today to attend to an urgent constituency matter. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Good. There are no other apologies. I can see all of the Cabinet members are present, as are all members of the Corporate Management Board. So I will now take declarations of a personal or prejudicial interest from members and officers in accordance with the provisions of the Members' Code of Conduct adopted by this authority in September 2008. Councillor Blundell, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to declare a prejudicial interest in agenda item 12, the appointment of local authority governors as a member of Bryn Terrain Comprehensive. I will then leave the chamber.
Thank you for that, Councillor Blundell. Councillor Spanzik, please.
Thank you, Leader. I need to declare prejudicial interest, and I'm trying to find the item number. It's item 11, Managed Services, Children's Services. Declare prejudicial interest. We'll leave the chamber at that point.
And that's item 11, is it? And item 9 on the supervision policy. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor Spanzik. If there are any other declarations of interest that members need to declare during the course of the meeting, please indicate it to me and I will take them at that stage. The minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on the 12th of January are before you for approval as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Can I have a mover for that and a seconder, please?
Move, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Farr.
I'm happy to second, Leader.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Move everyone in agreement.
Yep.
Thank you, all colleagues. We'll now receive the first report on today's agenda, and that is a report of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I believe we have been joined by the Chair, who's going to present that report. So a very warm welcome to Councillor Williams, who's joining us virtually. Over to you, please, Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Leader. Can you hear me?
And indeed, loud and clear. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for inviting me to present the recommendations and conclusions of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and those of all scrutiny committees following the publication of your initial budget proposals for the 2023-24 financial year and the midterm financial strategy. This also follows detailed examination of budget pressures and potential budget reductions, which were also considered by the Budget Research and Evaluation Panel, which has also presented recommendations for your consideration. To say the least, it's been a very long and rigorous process, I'm sure you'll agree, and at its meeting on the 31st of January, the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee proposed to submit the recommendations and conclusions of all 4 scrutiny committees to Cabinet unamended as part of the budget consultation process, together with the addition of recommendation 9 in Appendix B, that there be a communication to residents to improve understanding of the purpose of reserves and earmarked reserves held by the Council. I draw Cabinet members' attention to all final comments, recommendations and requests in Appendix A and a table of all recommendations for Cabinet's response in Appendix B. In particular, Leader, I would like to draw your attention to recurring themes in all committees' consideration of your initial budget proposals. First, it should be highlighted that all 4 committees agreed with the underlying principles of the forthcoming budget and MTFS, in that we will seek to protect those most vulnerable people in our communities. However, with regards to Scrutiny Committee 1 consideration of the budget, grave concerns were expressed by 2 representatives of the School Budget Forum, both head teachers in our county borough, about the potential impact of a 2% budget cut in schools' delegated budgets, and the committee has universally endorsed the recommendation that you consider options to reduce this pressure to 1% in the forthcoming financial year, due to the potential for schools to enter into deficit positions or even have to undergo a process of compulsory redundancies as a last resort. All committees recognise the service pressures in both adult and children's social care, and therefore endorse the Cabinet's suggestion that there would be no budget reductions in this directorate. Another recurring theme, Leader, was concern about the budget reduction proposals in the Communities Directorate, including the withdrawal of support for the RNLI, the Strategic Regeneration Fund, and the Waste Enforcement Team, due to it potentially being a false economy and counterproductive. With regards to council tax, all members agreed that Cabinet should be mindful of the public consultation and the reticence to increase council tax by a significant sum, and would like Cabinet to reconsider the proposed 6% increase to ensure that members of our community are supported as much as possible during this ongoing cost of living crisis. But we're also mindful that this needed to be balanced with ensuring that essential council services could continue to be funded. You will have seen numerous recommendations, Leader, relating to the budget setting process and the request for the Budget Responsibility and Evaluation Panel to be convened at an earlier stage in the 2023-24 financial year, and for us to receive more information on the potential discretionary areas or even policy changes whereby reductions can be made in the future, so that we can actively suggest alternatives, which members found it difficult to identify. And I'm pleased that the finance team, led by Caris, has agreed to engage with me, the chair of BREP, Councillor Tim Thomas, and other members on what we require in the future, so that we can do this job more effectively and add more value to you as a Cabinet in considering your budget proposals. Finally, I kindly refer members of the Cabinet to section 9 of the report and the recommendation that the Cabinet is requested to consider and respond to the recommendations of the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive summary of the work of the committees, all the committees, and of course the Budget Research and Valuation Panel. And we are very grateful to the depth in which the committees have undertaken this work. I think it's fair to say that you've clocked up days of time in carefully scrutinising each and every line of the budget, and you have given us 36 recommendations for us to consider in the coming weeks, and I know that I'm certainly finding these recommendations very helpful. I'm sure Cabinet colleagues will as well, and I know that it's been recognised by the committee, and you have recognised that in your presentation and in the feedback you've given us, how difficult it is to reconcile and balance those different pressures and the competing pressures that we face around the council tax and the growth in budgets required for services. And you yourself have identified, and the committee have identified, for example, the need for such a large growth in the social services budget, and that cannot come without consequences, can it? Councillor Williams, I can see that you wanted to come in. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and just to echo your comments there, and thank Councillor Williams as chair of the of COSC and all backbenchers have taken part in the scrutiny process. It is a very valuable process, and you know, we need to resolve these issues in an amicable way between us all. Regarding the recommendation to engage much earlier in the budget setting process for 23-24, we certainly will take you up on that offer, because a greater understanding of budget headings and budget lines would be a benefit to all of us. Regarding the recommendations, we will now have regard to the recommendations that you put forward prior to Cabinet recommending to full council on the 1st of March a final budget. So thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. Councillor Spanzer, please.
Thank you, Leader. And I'd like to thank the whole scrutiny process for the engagement that's taking place with on the comments and discussion around the waste enforcement team, or the proposal to remove the budget line there for the waste enforcement team, because it's not just enforcement team, there's an engagement and education team. It's one team working together and has done some great work. And I suppose as part of the process, through scrutiny and through further debate, it's become abundantly clear that savings like this are not really savings. They're cuts which would cost us money longer term. So we seriously have to consider what we do when we look at things like this, because they are saving us money by educating, improving, engaging. I think that there is an argument that we need to look again exactly how the team works, and look perhaps to increase our activity on fly tipping, and perhaps a bit more, come down a bit harder on people. There's some work that started, some great stuff taking place in Wild Mill, and there's other areas to look at as well. So I look forward to further discussion now, but seriously considering removing that cut from the budget.
Thanks for that, Councillor Spanzwick, and I hope you understand, Councillor Williams, Councillor Alex Williams, know the process that and confirming with the monitoring officer that we now take these proposals away and give them long, hard consideration. We've seen them for today, but obviously we need time to consider them, and obviously that will be part of our process and the next stage of setting the budget. There was just one question from me, if that's okay, Councillor Williams, and it was on recommendation 8 is about the targeted consultation, and just whether there was any more detail about that, because I know we undertake work with, for example, the Youth Council, Gender Equalities Forum, and that consultation and engagement has evolved over the years, and has changed. And we do try to reach and target different groups and different as many different groups and sections of our communities as we can. But if there were any detail, that would be useful. But if it's in the general, and obviously completely understand that. So that was just one question from me on the detail, really.
I think I'd have to consult my colleagues, Leader, on that. Obviously,
Right.
Councillor Tim Thomas is chair of BREP. I would have to review my notes on exactly what occurred during the long process of the Budget Responsibility and Evaluation Panel. But I'm happy to write to the Cabinet on that if I've got more information to provide, if that's okay with you.
That would be really helpful, and I completely understand that. It's 36 recommendations. It's quite a quite a blockbuster, really, of recommendations there. And we will take them away. And finally, then, can I just thank Councillor Williams for his stewardship of this committee and his work on this. It is a huge amount of time he's invested, and I'd like to thank him and the whole committee for the constructive way that they've engaged in this process on a cross-party basis and in a way that is about helping us to deliver that budget. And we really do appreciate that. It has been invaluable. And as I say, we look forward to that next stage in the budget set-in process. And thank you once again for your attendance here today, Councillor Williams. It's much appreciated. Is there any questions that you have for us? I know you've asked us lots of questions, you and your committee members, but if there's anything you wanted to ask of us or anything before we move on to the next item.
No, I think I've laid down the mantle to you over the course of the last few weeks in coming up with a series of different policy changes and alternative budget proposals. So I look forward to the next stage of the process, Leader. Thank you very much.
Right, okay, thanks, yeah. 36 recommendations are enough to be getting on with, aren't they? Okay, thank you very much, yeah. Councillor Williams. We'll now receive the next report on the agenda, and that is a report of the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and that is a update on the Treasury Management and the Q3 report. So over to you, please, Caris.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just for the sake of the recording, I'm Caris Lord, and I'm the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change. So the purpose of this report for Cabinet this afternoon is to update you on the Q3 position for our Treasury Management activities and on our Treasury Management indicators for the current year, and to highlight compliance with the Council's policies and procedures. You'll be aware that Treasury Management is the management of the Council's cash flow, our borrowing and our investment, and also the associated risks with those activities. And the Council is exposed to financial risks, including the loss of invested funds and the revenue effect of changing interest rates. The successful identification, monitoring and control of financial risk are therefore central to the Council's prudent financial management. The Treasury Management strategy for the current financial year was approved by Council in February last year, and I can confirm for Cabinet that the Council has complied with its legislative and regulatory requirements during the first 9 months of this year, and detail regarding our activity for Treasury Management is in Appendix A of the report. I would just say the key points to note really are that the long-term borrowing at the end of September was 99.8 million. This has changed very little from our previous report, and the change that has happened is in relation to some Salix loans. At the moment, we're predicting that we're unlikely to borrow in the current financial year based on the Q3 monitoring of the capital programme, which was reported to both Cabinet and Council in January. You'll be aware also that the Council does invest monies, and in doing so, it ensures the security of the funding, the liquidity of that funding, and then the yield from that investment. And the investments that we make consist of money received in advance of expenditure, the use of our balances and reserves. So at the end of December, the amount of money we had invested was just over £94 million. We do take advice from our advisors with regards to where our monies are placed. So the detail in Appendix A gives you more detail on the activity during this period. So if I may, Leader, I just take you to Section 9 of this afternoon's report, where it's recommended that Cabinet note the Council's Treasury management activities for the current year for the period the 1st of April to the 31st of December 2022, and also the projected indicators for this financial year. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Caris. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Leader. And if I just may begin by moving the recommendation at 9. My question would be, I suppose everyone would be aware that we have increasing interest rates now. The base rate is sort of increasing. And so how will this impact on our Treasury management in the short term? Or short and medium term?
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams. Caris, please.
Okay, thank you for that question. We've had more changes in the interest rate this year, I think, than we've had over the last few years. So it's a very valuable question. It'll impact on us in two ways, really. One is in relation to our investments. So we are starting to see an increase in the interest being paid on the money that we've got invested. That's a very recent thing, really. In the last few weeks, I would say, we've seen an increase in the interest that we will get on the money that we've invested. It's very difficult to project that forward with regards to what that will mean in the longer term, only because interest rates are moving a lot at the moment, and therefore it's difficult to predict. But also, it will depend on the money that we have available to us to invest. So it depends on the money that we spend going through the capital programme with regards to how much we will actually be able to invest during the coming financial year. So it's difficult to give you an estimate financially, but it will impact positively on the interest that we can have during the current year. The other thing I would also say is, of course, the flip of that is if we should borrow money, the cost of borrowing money is also going up with these increases in the interest rates.
Thank you for that, Caris. Does that answer your question, Councillor Williams? Deputy Leader, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. I'm happy to second the report. So to be blunt, one of the questions that we get raised here about our Treasury management is the loans that we gave to Thurrock Council. Could you tell me, please, if the repayments are as scheduled? Are they compliant? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Caris, please.
Yes, thank you for that question. I mean, members will be aware we've got two investments currently with Thurrock. Both of them are due to be repaid to us during this financial year. And we have been reassured that that money will be coming back to us on the days that it's due to us.
Okay, thank you for that, Caris. Do I have a seconder for the regular seconded? And is everyone in agreement with those recommendations? Thank you, Caris. And of course, we should remind colleagues that if there are members of the public listening, that Treasury management activity takes place on a daily basis, and we monitor Treasury management and Treasury activity on a daily basis, and we respond to that on a daily basis with independent advice from specialists, and that will continue as the macroeconomic situation continues to evolve, doesn't it? And we've heard about for example, the changes in interest rates that will have an impact, and we review all our holdings and our commitments on the basis of those changing conditions in the markets and the changes in interest rates. Thank you, Caris. The recommendations have been moved and seconded, so we will now move on to the next report, the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and that is on the outcome of the consultation Shaping Bridgend's Future 2022. Caris, please.
Thank you, Leader. As you've said, the purpose of this report is to inform Cabinet of the outcome of the Shaping Bridgend's Future 2022 budget consultation process. The consultation asked citizens their views on what they consider should be the priority areas for allocating the budget for the forthcoming financial year. So the public consultation exercise was undertaken over a 5-week period between the 19th of December and the 22nd of January this year. It was a shorter consultation period than usual, as it was only for 5 weeks. And through the consultation, residents were asked to share their views and priorities across a number of different areas. We did use a wide variety of methods to gain people's views, including surveys, a quick poll, the use of social media. We did some face-to-face drop-in sessions, as well as an explainer video, radio adverts, and some media releases. Contact was also made with all governing bodies and head teachers, as well as Bridgend College, to promote the consultation amongst the learners, as well as the school staff and parents and carers. The survey was also promoted via social media using the Council's Twitter account, our Facebook account, Instagram and LinkedIn. And the audience for the consultation exercise was broad and included the general public and residents of the County Borough area, the citizens panel members, elected members and staff of the Council. In total, the consultation received 1,441 interactions via these different methods. The majority of those responses were received via the online survey. It's interesting to note that that response rate is actually higher than last year's response rate, where the consultation actually ran for 8 weeks. So it was a slightly better response rate. All of the results of the consultation are detailed for you in Appendix A of this afternoon's report. So if I may, Leader, I just take you to recommendation that the section 9, where it's recommended that Cabinet note the outcome of the consultation with interested parties as detailed in the attached consultation report at Appendix A. Thank you.
Thank you for that summary, Caris. Deputy Leader, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. So firstly, I want to thank all members of the public for engaging with us. I think that's really useful. But also with my portfolio of social services, I was really pleased to see that social services was the second priority of our constituents. Historically, we know that our residents don't recognise the importance of our social services provision, but I believe they're getting it now, which is what I want to say, and they recognise the value of the provision that we offer them, particularly when you consider that they're for the most disadvantaged and vulnerable of our residents. But I'm happy to move the report, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Leader, and happy to second the report. And also, like the Deputy Leader, I too wish to thank everyone who completed the survey. It is really important that residents take the opportunity to inform us of their priorities and concerns. I was fortunate, I think I used the word fortunate, I was fortunate enough to partake in 3 of the Meet the Public events. And, I mean, it's clear people lead busy lives, but those people that did take the time to stop and talk to us, then that was a very valuable experience for me. And I think it also came across that, we do need to spend time talking to people, because that we do need to explain the different levels of government. That came across quite clearly, really, that some people are not quite clear who's responsible for what. So every opportunity we have to engage with the public, it's a very valuable learning experience. We will now take this very valuable information away, and we'll have a look at that. There's some very interesting trends there that we can build upon, I'm sure, and it will help us shape the future direction of this council. So happy to second the report.
Thank you for that, Councillor Williams, and thank you for assisting in that face-to-face aspect of the consultation. Again, it is something, no doubt, Caris, that we'll consider. Councillor Williams, going forward, we're always looking to see how we can further enhance the level of engagement. But as you've described, people lead very busy lives, don't they? And it's not easy to get thousands and thousands of people to take part in consultation, but we'll continue to try our best. Councillor Spanzik is next, please.
Thank you, Leader. And I'd just like to comment on the item in the report on 481, the prioritising council services. And this gives us 3 areas there, which there's many more areas that perhaps people don't appreciate so much. They don't until they actually use that service, whether that's in social care or education. Lots of services that people only think of a priority when they have to use them. But this prioritising council services, the top 3 responses, 2 of them in particular fall in the Communities Directorate, and that's street cleansing and street road repairs. And they are areas we're looking to try and work on amongst all the pressures of cuts and budget cuts. But it's great to see that street and road repairs also ties back to our manifesto of this Labour administration, where we're looking to invest in the future highways and road repairs. And we have done a lot of investment over the years. As I've seen, if you've got the Hogwarts and Garra valleys, there's some great resurfacing work's been done over the years. So there is money being spent, a lot more spent, but it's great to see how prioritising council services, as residents, definitely one area there where we've already prioritised that within our manifesto moving forward over the next 4.5 years. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Spanzik. I can't see that anyone else wants to come in, and of course what we will do is we will consider this as part of the next stage in the development of the budget. We will consider it alongside the very helpful work of the overview and scrutiny committees and the budget and research and evaluation panel in our next phase of the delivery of the budget. So, Councillor Spanzik, I think that's a legacy hand, is it? Yeah, that's okay. You're very welcome to come back in if you wanted to. But we'll of course look to build on this next year. So, is everyone in agreement with the recommendations? Thank you, colleagues. We will now receive the next report, another report from the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and this is on the Code of Corporate Governance. So, Caris, please.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to present to you the Council's updated Code of Corporate Governance for approval and adoption. Good governance is about doing the right things in the right way for the right people in a timely, inclusive, open, honest and accountable manner. The Code of Corporate Governance reflects a joint commitment by both members and senior managers to the principles it contains. Corporate governance is a phrase used to describe how organisations direct and control what they do. And effective systems of corporate governance provide confidence in public services. And it requires local authorities to carry out their services in a way that demonstrates accountability, openness and honesty. Adopting, monitoring and complying with the Code of Corporate Governance helps enhance the Council's legitimacy and acknowledges the trust placed in the Council by local people. The corporate governance policy is based on a framework which consists of 7 core principles, and these are detailed for you in Section 5 within Appendix A of this afternoon's report. And to achieve good governance, the authority has to be able to demonstrate that its governance structures comply with these core principles. The Governance and Audit Committee is responsible for monitoring and reviewing the governance arrangements. And through this committee, the Council ensures that these arrangements are kept under continual review. And the review includes consideration of work undertaken by internal audit, reports prepared by managers with responsibility for various aspects of that code, reports and opinions expressed by our external auditors, and also reports of other regulatory bodies and inspectorates. Each year, the Council publishes an annual governance statement, which provides an overall assessment of the Council's corporate governance arrangements an appraisal of the controls in place to manage the key risks the Council has, and also details of where improvements need to be made. The annual governance statement is reviewed by the Corporate Management Board and approved by the Governance and Audit Committee. The annual governance statement is then published as part of the Council's annual statement of accounts and is reviewed by our external auditors as part of the final closure of accounts process. If I can, Leader, I would just take you to section 9 of the report, where it's recommended that Cabinet consider and approve the revised Code of Corporate Governance.
Thank you for that, Caris, and for the work your team have undertaken on this very important part of our governance arrangements. Councillor Williams, please. Yeah, I'd extend that and echo those words. Very grateful to the committee, which of course is chaired by an independent member and has 4 independent members on the committee. That's a very valuable part of our governance arrangements as a local authority, and of course they've carefully considered this, and indeed this has and will go to the Auditor General and Wales Audit Office as well for approval, and I'm sure, Caris, it reflects the arrangements across Wales for local authorities that we look for best practice. We look to see how we can. We're always looking to see how we can improve our corporate governance arrangements, and this is a reflection of that, and also the legislation, which always evolves and changes, the guidance as well as the legislation. Councillor Spanzik, please.
Thank you, Leader. It's like technical question, I suppose. So on page, where's the page number gone? Page 8 to 33 is the start of the chart. It's behaviour with integrity, ensuring members and officers behave with integrity and lead a culture for acting in public interest. And the evidence that supports the actions, it highlights there, modern.gov paperless meeting, and that's another discussion another day about paperless meetings, but paperless meeting app with in-app voting. It would be great when we get to the point where we can have in-app voting, because we still have a lengthy process of calling out a name if there's a vote required. So assuming that's something we're moving towards, and perhaps that's not something Caris, not being the IT whiz, I don't know if we have an IT whiz here today, but it does say that, the evidence supports the actions. Modern.gov paperless meeting app with in-app voting. So look forward to that at whatever point that can be introduced.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Spanzik, and just goes to show you've read it from cover to cover. I know you always do. I'll bring the monitoring officer in, who of course is responsible for democratic services within the authority, and I know there's work underway, isn't there, monitoring officer, on continuing to improve the technology within the chamber and committee rooms to reflect the modern hybrid way of working. Kelly, please.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, so we've updated the chamber here, which has now got enhanced functionality. The next stage is going to be the committee rooms, which will hopefully be taking place quite shortly. There are additional functionalities which have not been activated yet, and that's to do with the programmes we are signed up to. We will be looking to enhance those if needed, but obviously they will come with a cost, which will have to be factored in. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, thank you for that, and indeed that is an example how the work continues, doesn't it? It's not static. This is a process that will evolve actually as as technology evolves, but also as guidance and regulation evolves. And can you confirm, Caris, that the committee were obviously content with the code as set out? Thank you.
The committee saw the annual governance statement twice in the last 6 months. So they saw the draft one in July and made some very valuable comments for us, which we then actually did go back and make some changes to the statement as a result. And they also saw it again in January just gone, where it was included as part of our annual statement of accounts and the paperwork then. So they did contribute to the drafting of that statement and made some very valuable comments as part of that process.
Thank you for that, Carson. And of course, if there are any significant changes in legislation will change, but it doesn't happen every day, then of course we would review this code, wouldn't we? And we would bring it back here. So there's that commitment, I'm sure, from you and from the monitoring officer that is reflected in the code. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation, please? I think Councillor Williams has moved it, and a seconder, Councillor Farr. Is everyone in agreement with that? Okay, thank you, colleagues. We will now receive another report from the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change, and that is on the National Empty Property Scheme. Please.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to confirm participation in Welsh Government's National Empty Property Scheme, and also to seek approval from Cabinet to enter into a service level agreement with Rhondda and Taff County Borough Council as lead authority for this scheme. So in November last year, local authorities were notified by Welsh Government that a National Empty Homes Scheme had been approved and confirmed funding over the 2-year period 2023-24 and 2024-25. Rhondda and Taff County Borough Council has been appointed as the lead body to administer the scheme on behalf of local authorities. So the scheme will be fully operational from the 1st of April this year, and the main terms of the scheme are that the property would need to be empty for 12 months to qualify for a grant. The applicant must live in that property as their main resident for 5 years upon completion of the works. The maximum grant per application will be £25,000, and energy efficiency improvements will be a requirement as part of the works to be undertaken. Any costs over and above the grant and contribution must be met by the applicant. So to take part in this scheme, local authorities are required to enter into a service level agreement with the lead authority, commit to the principle of match funding on a case-by-case basis, and undertake the necessary property surveys for each case. If I may, Leader, I would take you to section 9 of the report, where it's recommended that Cabinet delegate authority to the Chief Officer Finance, Performance and Change and the Chief Officer Legal, HR and Regulatory Services to negotiate and enter into a service level agreement with Rhondda and Taff as the lead authority for this scheme, and also to approve any extension or amendment to the service level agreement, and to enter into any further deeds and documents which are ancillary to the service level agreement. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Caris, and for the work that your officers have undertaken on this very important initiative. Councillor Good, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to move this report. I think it's a really positive thing from Welsh Government, almost going hand in hand with the report and our recommendations coming to Council tomorrow with regards to long-term empty property premiums on council tax. It's really encouraging to see that Welsh Government recognises how important it is to encourage property owners to invest in their properties and use them as appropriate. We all know the challenges that we're facing in terms of housing across Wales and across the UK, and therefore I think it's great that we are able to support these property owners in getting their homes back into use, and also encouraging anyone else who's not taken up this scheme to pay for the privilege of keeping our house empty. So I'm happy to move the report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Councillor Good. Councillor Gebby, please, Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm quite happy to second the report. What I would say is I think it's very helpful of Welsh Government to assist us in giving this money, or giving us the opportunity to make this money, I should say, because we will benefit from council tax. We will benefit because there is no longer a blight in certain communities. They're often a target for antisocial behaviours. And we know that there's a problem with housing, and we haven't got enough houses for our residents out here. So I do think it's a really positive step. Thank you very much.
Indeed, it is very positive, and we're very grateful to Welsh Government for making this funding available. It is not an insignificant amount. The notional allocation for Bridgend is up to £1.2 million. That will make a real difference in many of our communities. It's of note that there will be a contribution required, and that's reasonable, I think, from the property owners, and that's a minimum 15% contribution. I'm also pleased to see that there's a requirement around energy efficiency improvements, which reflects that shared commitment of us and Welsh Government to net zero carbon. It is important in terms of fuel poverty and in terms of reducing carbon footprint, that we see those energy efficiency improvements made to properties, because we know that many of these properties will be older properties, won't they, Caris, that will be much more likely to be inefficient in terms of their energy usage. Can I check, please, Caris? There's been a number of initiatives over the years to bring empty homes back into use, including both grants and loans. Does this replace all of these grants, or do those other grants remain? Some of those other grants remain in place for residents to apply for? Caris, please.
There are actually a number of different initiatives and funding streams which will remain in place when this is introduced in April. So, for instance, Welsh Government has a Homes to Home scheme which provides loans for people to support them. There's also some empty property grants, which again is there to help people to adapt properties if they need to. So they may upgrade them, or they may change, I don't know, a house into a couple of flats. And there is also money for homes in towns as well, to encourage people with regards to sort of in-town dwelling, so that they can maybe convert an empty property into a residential unit if that's possible. So there are a number of different funding streams, Leader, and they will continue. So this will be another funding stream that people can access to support them.
Thank you for that, Caris. And given that there's a range of initiatives that homeowners and property owners can tap into, it would be helpful if we can bring those initiatives together, perhaps on our website, to make it as easy as possible and to raise as much awareness as we can about those grants that are available, because there is no reason why a property should lay empty for years and years. There's lots of help out there for owners, and we would encourage them to get in touch with us to discuss those options and how we can bring some of those empty homes back into use. So the recommendation has been moved by Councillor Good and seconded by the Deputy Leader. Is everyone in agreement with the recommendations at 9, please? Yes? Thank you, colleagues. You can have a glass of water now, Caris, as we will receive a report of the Corporate Director for Social Services and Wellbeing on the review of the Social Services and Wellbeing Supervision Policy. So over to you, please, Claire.
Thank you very much, Leader. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Claire Marchant, Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing. I'm really pleased to present to Cabinet this afternoon the outcome of a review of the supervision policy within the Social Services and Wellbeing Directorate. The current policy goes back to 2010. It was reviewed in 2018, but I think the work that's been undertaken over the last months really brings this policy up to date and fit for purpose for the future for our workforce. Supervision within social services and wellbeing is absolutely fundamental to the wellbeing of our staff, the retention of our workforce, and to the quality of our practice. And as you can see from the cover report, the requirements for supervision for registered staff are set out in legislation and regulation. In terms of the work that's been undertaken across the Directorate, the need to review the policy, and obviously all policies should be reviewed on a regular basis, was as an outcome of audit that we'd undertaken ourselves within the Directorate around the quality of supervision, and also I think right and proper to highlight that the quality of supervision, the frequency of supervision and the quality and effectiveness of management oversight of work has been noted by CIW in both regulatory and service inspections for us here in Bridgend. I think, as you can see within the report, the review of the policy has been undertaken very much in a co-productive way with both the frontline workforce and managers who are responsible for the supervision process. And it is very much an agreement for staff within the Directorate and for professional staff, particularly in terms of that supervision contract that supervisors and supervisees enter into. In terms of the changes from the current policy, I think a really important change to note is the separation out of the direct care workforce supervision policy. That was what was felt by staff in that area, both managers and supervisors, as the right thing to do. And obviously there are differences, particularly around case recordings on the WCCIS case management system that are quite different for direct care services. I think there's a far greater emphasis within this policy as set out in the paper and in the policy itself around reflective practice, which really is at the heart of the quality of practice and also staff well-being, as well as the important managerial oversight and that sort of contract with the social contract with the organisation as well. And what you'll notice if you read the policies is that this is very evidence-based, and there are quite frequent references in the policies to the evidence for quality supervision for staff working in social care settings and social care roles. I think it's important to note that both co-production in terms of the development of the policy, but also the training that's being delivered to support the implementation of the policy, and the policies itself build in the ongoing oversight in terms of both the occurrence of supervision, but also the quality assurance responsibilities for those of us in senior positions within the Directorate for the implementation of the policies. So really pleased to draw Cabinet's attentions to the recommendations in 9.1 and happy to take any questions. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Claire. Deputy Leader, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. What I would say is thank you very much to Claire Holt, who's put these policies together. I think that's really important to note. I'm really pleased to see the new policies. I'm delighted that it's been produced with our workforce. They're the ones that it has to deliver for. And I'm really pleased that we can see some significant improvements already, particularly when we consider the improvement notices that we had from CIW in relation to any of our provision, but also in relation to the child practice review. One of the things that was highlighted was the lack of appropriate and considered supervision. And I think I'd just like to read this out because this is some feedback from one of our officers. So I've had an overwhelming positive response to the supervision training that has recently taken place. Without exception, all my managers have been raving about how fantastic the training and the trainer has been. And I have to say, coming from social services background, that is not the usual position when you talk about supervision. In fact, it's something that you quite often like to try and run away from. Thank you very much. I'm happy to move the report, Leader.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader, and thanks for that feedback. It's always very interesting and helpful to hear that feedback direct from the front line. Councillor Farr is next, please.
Thank you, Claire. I'm happy to second the report, and I really welcome this because I think it's so important to have regular supervision, to reflect on your practice, to reflect on cases, especially when you're dealing with complex cases. A couple of questions for you, Claire, please. Will the policy say how often the supervision must take place? And do you have IT system to support you to flash it up that something's been breached? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Claire, please.
Thank you, Councillor Farr, for the questions. Yes, the policies do set out the frequency of supervision. In the policy for non-direct care staff, it's at least every 4 to 6 weeks. And it does, our WCCIS system does enable us to record that supervision has happened, and importantly, I think in terms of individual cases, to record that supervision in terms of those cases has happened, so that there's evidence of that management oversight on cases as well.
Thank you for that, Claire. Answer your question. Thank you. That's okay, Councillor Farr. Did you want to come? No, I didn't. Okay. I certainly welcome these refreshed policies, and I'm particularly pleased to see that we've worked with trade union colleagues as well, so that it truly is co-produced. I also know that as part of the work that CIW are undertaking with us currently, that this is something we've identified as an area that we need to make progress on, and I am pleased that we've brought this here today, because I'm sure they will be looking at this, and I also know that it was one of the action points from the child practice review as well that was published recently. So I don't know, Claire, if you wanted to confirm that is the case, because I'm sure they'll be looking at these policies as our regulators. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I can confirm that is indeed the case, and that in the recent November last year improvement check by CIW, they asked for a copy of the draft policy as it was at that time, to ensure that they had assurance that we were addressing the issues that both they and ourselves had identified.
So thank you for that, Claire. We can take confidence from that then that the regulators are supportive of this new policy as they've seen the draft policy. Though of course they'll want to see the final version. I hasten to add, but that is very encouraging to hear that they've obviously seen it as the policy has developed. The recommendation has been moved and seconded. Is everyone in agreement with that recommendation? Yes, I can see that everyone is agreeing with that. Thank you, colleagues. And we'll now move on to the second report of the Corporate Director for Social Services and Wellbeing, and that report is on the proposed renewal of our Section 33 agreement for community equipment. So over to you again, please, Claire.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. Again, really pleased to present this report for Cabinet consideration this afternoon. And the purpose of the report, as set out in 1.1, is to seek approval from Cabinet to renew the Section 33 agreement for the supply of community equipment, to seek authority to suspend the Council's contract procurement rules in respect of the requirement to competitively procure the services provided by Rhondda Cynon Taf County Borough Council under the agreement, and seek approval for the appointment of the Integrated Community Services Manager Community Resource Team as the BCBC representative for the Community Equipment Partnership Board. So as Cabinet know, community equipment is an absolutely essential part of the range of services that we and health services provide to keep people as independent as possible and to support them to live within their own home. And it's really important that that equipment is provided in a very timely way at critical points when people's needs may increase, particularly around a time when somebody might be being discharged from hospital, but also when their needs are assessed in the community and perhaps there's an increase in their need and a requirement for equipment. And this service covers both adults and children's. So, as the report set out, this is a long-standing arrangement between the former Health Board and indeed the former NHS Trust and local health board and Rhondda and Taff County Borough Council. It's a very successful arrangement, I would say, and was benefited back in 2012 from capital funding from Welsh Government, which required NHS organisations and local government to work in partnership together to set up integrated community equipment arrangements to meet needs in the most effective way, and there was capital attached at the time to the provision of these services. So in terms of our governance, we have a Section 33 arrangement in place, which we are seeking permission here to renew and looking to enter into a long-term arrangement with Rhondda and Taff to give that certainty in terms of provision and enable us to develop the services in partnership over a long period of time. So it is a 10-year set of arrangements that we're seeking to enter into. I think in terms of the risks to the council of these arrangements, they are set out in 4.9, but as I said earlier, and as 4.9 makes clear, that the overall risk for potential challenge is mitigated by the fact this is Welsh Government policy, and collaboration is a commonly used tool for the provision of services such as these. So very happy, Leader, to take you to 9.1 of the report, which sets out the recommendations, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Claire. Deputy Leader, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. I don't have any questions. However, I'm happy to move the report because this is a really important partnership service to residents. And I think it's worth noting that you wouldn't know this service provision was there until you actually needed it and you were in a bit of need. So I think it's always worth noting that there is assistance available out there to residents. And if they don't know where to go, please contact us and we'll assist them. Thanks very much.
Thank you for taking that opportunity, and it's an important opportunity to remind people of the importance of this service. This literally can make the difference between somebody staying in their own home independently or having to be admitted or staying in hospital or residential care. It's about very important aids that enable people to live independently. And of course, every year, as long as I've been a member, I've seen a growth in the demand for the service and the growth in the budget for this service as more and more people need the support of the service. Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Councillor Spanzik is next, please.
Thank you, Leader. I thought Councillor Farr was next.
Indeed, Councillor Farr is next, and I will bring Councillor Farr in first. I'm glad somebody is looking at the screen properly. Thank you, Councillor Farr.
Well, I'm glad you brought me in because John may have stolen my thunder and asked my question. I think I'm happy to second the report. I think it's really, really important to have these equipments. What I wanted to ask, Claire, is, unfortunately, we do have people who die or people who have to go back into placements. What happened to those equipments? Do we have them back? Can we recycle them? Thank you.
Yeah, I think a really good opportunity, Councillor Farr, to highlight the fact that yes, we do seek to retrieve the equipment. Staff, our workforce, can request the service to collect the equipment if the person's on an active caseload, and then Vision Projects will ring the person or the family to arrange the best time And then families can also request Vision Products to call out and to collect the equipment, and in the sort of circumstances you describe when somebody's bereaved, that might not be the top of the list, but I think it's important that we supply that information about how that happens, and that is something which the management board for the service really look into a lot of detail. There are performance indicators in terms of the return of equipment, and it's something which I think we're always keen that it happens more, because we all know of occasions when we can go into somebody's home and perhaps equipment hasn't been returned. So I think there's an opportunity perhaps just to highlight that and highlight how that's very easy for people to make those arrangements.
Some of that equipment is quite bulky, isn't it? For example, it could be aiding people with sleep in bed and other support equipment, and we do have those vehicles, don't we, as part of that service that can help with that. So we'd encourage any families to get in touch if they do have equipment that they believe needs to be returned and reused. Councillor Spanzik is now next. Thank you, Councillor Spanzik.
Thank you, Leader. First, like I said, I fully support the report and the marvellous work that is done at the Vision Products near Talbot Green. There's some great facility, been there for many years, and long may it continue. But I do think I need to dig a little bit deeper on the financial aspects as well, because it is a bit light when it comes to finances. So the financial implications part of the report, it says about the council's contribution will be met from within existing social services and wellbeing directorate budget, but it doesn't say what that contribution is. And so this is existing, this is not part of any growth bit, I take it, which is good if the money's there already. Because in the recommendations, the last bullet point does talk about, I take as a new appointment of integrated community services manager, which, if I'm correct in believing that's a new appointment, we managed without that appointment in the past. So I'd like to understand, I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but why the need now for a new post if it's been working, and what are the costs, because it does need to have some financial element within this report, I feel.
Thank you for that, Councillor Spanzik. Claire, can you answer those queries, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I can first give assurance that the Integrated Community Services Manager post isn't a new post. It's a very long-standing post. Members will know probably my colleague Michelle King very well. She's been in an integrated post between BCBC and the Health Board for many years, and I think the fact it's an integrated post, actually it mentions BCBC, but she's 50% funded by Health, 50% funded by ourselves as a local authority, is a really good example of how this is a very genuinely integrated service as part of integrated community services here in Bridgend. In terms of the budget, it is a budget that is under pressure. I think if I refer you back to the last budget monitoring report, it was an area that was demonstrating an overspend position, and the reasons for that I think will be well understood. We've got an ageing population, we have a population not just getting older, but the care and support needs that come with ageing. The demographics we face here in Bridgend, in common with many of the local authorities, see pressure on these community equipment budgets. And I think that this is also an area in terms of finance that frequently in previous years we've seen money come through quite late in the day around areas such as winter pressures. And if we look at budget monitoring reports over many years, you'll have seen that grant funding has helped to offset some of those pressures in this budget. And as the Cabinet, I think, are aware, we haven't received specific winter pressures money this year, which has, I think, placed additional pressure on this community equipment budget. So it is one that has to be monitored very closely. It is monitored very closely. You know, there are professionals who prescribe this equipment, and there's always work ongoing to make sure that the most cost-effective procurement arrangements are in place. But it is a demand-driven budget as well, and it's very much linked to need for service, and more cost-effective than people requiring placement into a care home, which would be the alternative to the provision of equipment.
Thank you for that, Claire. And I can confirm that I've seen over the years that we have benefited, haven't we, from quite often grants that are awarded very late within the financial year that have supported this area, because Welsh Government and indeed the Regional Partnership Board have recognised the importance of this equipment in maintaining particularly older people's independence through different aids. and equipment, and therefore that money has been committed, and that has ensured that the budget has been covered. Now there is a risk for that, isn't there? However, it has been support that we've received in recent years. I hope that provides the reassurance, and I knew I could rely on you, Councillor Spanzik, to check on the detail. Did you want to come back in?
I can now see the last bullet point, because when I go down below, contact officers, integrated community services manager. It's the way it's written. It says approves the appointment of the integrated community services manager, but it's approving it as a member, PCB's representative on the board. It's the way it's written. But I still think, though, the report should have some figures in there, because it's very unusual to see a social report without some figures in there.
Yeah, so it's you are right. It's just to be clear, it's an appointment of that individual to a board. It's not the appointment of an individual just to sit on that board. It's one of many responsibilities that post holder has and discharges. And we can indeed bring back further information on the budget and the finance for community equipment. And what we will do as well is we'll promote this scheme so people understand it and what's available to the public. Though of course there is an assessment process, isn't there, Claire? Because some of this equipment is very expensive, isn't it, in terms of the complexity and the quality of the equipment. Okay, well, the recommendation's been moved and seconded. Is everyone in agreement with that recommendation? Yes, thank you very much, colleagues. And we will now receive the third report of the Corporate Director for Social Services and Wellbeing, and that is on the managed service in children's services. And I can confirm that Councillor Spanzik has left the meeting, so over to you, please, Claire.
Thank you very much, Leader. The purpose of this report, again as set out in 1.1, is to seek approval from Cabinet to directly award a managed service contract to an independent organisation currently delivering the service into Bridgend Children's Services to ensure continuity in child safeguarding arrangements. Cabinet approval is being sought to suspend the relevant parts of the Council's contract procedure rules with regards to the requirement to retender the managed service element of the contract detailed in this report. So the background to this report, as set out, is the fact that earlier last year, as now is, there was a requirement to secure a managed team into our information advice and assistance service in Bridgend Children's Services to ensure that we had the right workforce capacity in place to provide safeguarding and child protection arrangements for our most vulnerable children in the county borough. In terms of the arrangement that we put in place, we worked with colleagues in procurement across the council and with colleagues in HR, with the council's agreed agency contract provider per temps, and the managed team came into place from March 2022 for an initial period of 6 months, and then the arrangement that was put in place enabled an extension of 6 months under that initial arrangement. As Cabinet are very aware, there has been significant pressure on Bridgend Children's Services in the last year. A lot of that pressure was initially felt at the front door of Children's Services, and in order to make sure that we have the right safeguarding arrangements in place, given the challenges around children's social work workforce, it was necessary to enter into this arrangement and to secure a managed team. What I would say, and no director of social services wants to be in a position where delivery of those statutory duties, the most fundamental statutory duties we have as a council, are reliant on agency workforce, that the arrangements to secure a managed team gives more certainty, gives more consistency in terms of workforce than the ad hoc arrangement and engagement of agency workers. And from a regulatory inspection perspective, as you see under 3.5, CIW have acknowledged the improvements that we're making to that service, and really pleased now with the performance of that service as a consequence of the securing of the managed team. So the situation that we have in our IAA service is that we've seen really what I would describe as an exponential increase in demand in the service during the last year, in the number of contacts that are coming into the service, in the number of assessments that requires registered social workers to undertake those assessments, both care and support assessments and child protection inquiries under Section 47 of the Children's Act as reflected in the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. In order to undertake those duties safely, you need a sufficient workforce, and we are committed in the Council, as set out within the report, to securing a permanent workforce in order to undertake those duties, but the actions that we're taking aren't quick in terms of securing that workforce. We're growing our own social workers, and that's really positive, supporting more and more employees of this council to be seconded to undertake the social work degree and become professionally qualified, but it's a 3-year degree course, and then once workers become qualified, they need to consolidate their practice for the first couple of years. We're also internationally recruiting and really excited to be able to welcome international recruits to Bridgend shortly. But given the level of vacancies across the services, those very welcome additions to our workforce won't solve the issue that we have in terms of the level of vacancies across services. And because we know that other authorities are in similar positions, the likelihood of recruiting into all of those vacancies from other authorities is highly challenging and improbable. So hence the recommendations in this report. It's quite a sort of complex set of commissioning arrangements as set out in 4.6, and this report deals with the managed service element. So the service that we secure has its own quality assurance, it has its own management oversight, and as referenced in the earlier report around supervision, that's really critical to the quality of practice, although it doesn't abdicate any accountability and responsibilities we have for any service provided for our children here in Bridgend. And that's the element of service which this report concerns. The social worker element, which makes up over 90% of the value, it can be secured via a current lot, ESPO 3S22. Don't ask me what that stands for, but it is a current lot which enables us to legally secure the social workers, and therefore it is the managed service element which requires Cabinet consideration this afternoon. What the recommendation is that we enter into this arrangement for an initial 12-month period, and this is obviously an area of very high spend, very high risk to us as an authority from a service perspective. So as Cabinet, you would want to continue to have oversight of any decisions to extend that further, and obviously you as Cabinet would want to be consulting with the appropriate scrutiny chairs given the requirements there, which is why the recommendation is set out that way. This does require you to consider suspension of the Council's contract procedure rules, and you would be considering that on the grounds that the safeguarding implications of not having continuity of service, of not having the managed service element provided by the same provider as the social workers, would not effectively safeguard children, which is why you're being asked to make this decision, or consider making this decision this afternoon. The financial implications of this this report are set out in 8.1 and 8.2, but I do need to draw to your attention that this is around the managed service element, not the 90% of the contract, which is for the social work element as set out earlier in the report. And then 9.1 of the report takes you to the recommendations, which obviously ask for the approval for the continuation of the managed service, to suspend the relevant parts of the Council's contract procedure rules, and then delegate authority to myself, the Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing, in consultation with the Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change and Section 151 Officer, and the Chief Officer for Legal and Regulatory Services, HR and Corporate Policy, to enter into a contract for the managed service for a 12-month period from the 18th of March 2023, with an option to extend for a further 2 12-month periods for a maximum 3-year duration, provided that the exercise of any such extension option be subject to the prior approval by the Cabinet, Corporate Management Board, and consultation with scrutiny chairs. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that, Claire. I'll bring the Deputy Leader in first, then Councillor Farr, and then Councillor Good. Deputy Leader, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Claire's already referenced a lot of the points that I was going to make when in moving the report, because I'm quite happy to, because the managed team has been instrumental in our practice improvements here in Bridgend, particularly in the IAA. The volume of work is also a factor that's coming into the authority. It's a front door provision, and we actually need those social workers in order to deliver a safe and effective service. And CIW have also asked us for reassurance in relation to this managed team, because we do need to ensure that our residents have a safe and secure service that they're able to use. I think it's also worth noting that we've got regional concerns around social services workforce provision as a whole, and I don't want to be fighting all the time for social workers who are looking to see which is the better option. This way we have much more consistency, which is in line with all social services legislation currently. Thanks very much, Leader.
Yeah, we continue to make that case, don't we, for national terms and conditions. The case is a compelling one, and long term it's one of the ways that we can address some of the difficulties and real challenges we're experiencing at the moment. Councillor Farr is next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's really great that we are looking at growing our own. It's really important that we do that. I think everybody be aware is celebrating the week of our apprentice this week. I met quite a few of them yesterday who spoke very positively about working for BCBC, and I dare say there'll be some potential social workers there. Two questions I've got, Claire. When we do grow our own, how do we measure success? Also, once they have qualified and got a permanent job, how do we ensure that we don't lose them, please? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Farr. Claire, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions, Councillor Farr. In terms of measuring success, we measure success by retaining those social workers and tracking their careers through in terms of longevity here within Bridgend. I think the evidence is really clear. If you give people a really good experience during their training placements, if you support them, then during first years of practice, their likelihood of being retained within the county borough is very much higher. And I think some of our very best social workers are those who we supported to become professionally qualified. As you know very well, that the social work agency market over the last couple of years particularly has become incredibly competitive, and therefore the need to redouble, triple our efforts around retention as well as recruitment is even more important. In order to retain social workers in children's services, they need to feel safe in their practice fundamentally. They need to have caseloads which are reasonable. And one of the real success stories supported by this managed team is the way we've been able to reduce the caseloads to really the lowest level we've ever seen in this county borough in our IAA service over the last year. We need to make sure that they feel supported in terms of their ongoing development and give them those development opportunities, excellent supervision and management oversight, hybrid working, flexibility, all the things that everybody looks for. But our focus on those elements is really our top priority, even above recruitment, is retaining our current workforce and those trainees who are having significant investment in them from this council to support their professional qualification will benefit for those aspects. They are tied in for at least 2 years to work for us in permanent roles. They sign up to that when we support them to commence social work training. And there is a good retention rate at the end of that period.
Thank you for that, Claire. That's very encouraging to hear. And I was with Councillor Farr and the Deputy Leader and Councillor Good when we met, and Councillor Blunden, some of the apprentices, some of the many apprentices we have working for us at the moment. And at least 4 of the apprentices were working in social services because they before that I spoke to, and they were very enthusiastic about their roles here in Bridgend, they felt all, because I made a point of asking each and every, the 4 that I spoke to, how well supported they felt, and they felt very well supported. Most of them lived in the community, and they were really motivated to be working and supporting their own local community. So that was really heartening to hear yesterday. Councillor Good is next, please.
Thank you, Leader. Claire, I think, thank you for the report. I think you partially answered my question, but I can see from point 3.3 of the report that the IAA team has been in place for just shy of a year. And I just wondered, are we starting to see how the performance of the IAA is having an impact across Directorate, and how are we looking to measure that to make sure that they are being effective? And I guess the secondary question to that is the long-term goal really to get to a point where an IAA team is no longer required as we sort of develop our own and move forward beyond where we are now in social services?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Councillor Good. Yeah, I think in terms of performance, it's a good time at the moment because we're able to look back over the last year, and everybody knows that we were under extreme challenge at this time last year. But performance has improved, I think, to sort of the highest level in the IAA service, particularly. You know, we are required to screen contacts in 24 hours and make a decision in 24 hours, and we are routinely achieving that 100% of the time. That there are lots of statutory timescales which were held very strongly to account with around the work that happens in IAA. You know, the timescales around our Section 47 child protection inquiries, those inquiries need to take place in 10 days. It's always on one hand, you can count those that go over, and that means we're able to look in a lot of detail at the reasons why any individual investigation might go over. And the same with the care and support assessments, where we have 42 days, but we're able to look now in detail on the smaller number of occasions why that doesn't happen. And caseloads, as I say, that's a key qualitative indicator for us now at 18 in the front door services. Clearly, we need to get ourselves as a service to a sustainable position, and the council needs us to do that. So we're not reliant on a managed team. We're not reliant on the service operating as it is at the moment, which is over establishment, over the funded establishment, in order to maintain these performance levels given the level of demand, and in order to secure a permanent workforce. So there's lots of work currently going on in terms of the business case to set out what that establishment needs to be going forward. We've seen this very significant increase in demand coming through. That's starting to level off, but leveling off at a much higher level than it was pre-pandemic and pre, you know, the tragic case is that you're aware of that we've lived through here in Bridgend. We also need our workforce plans to come to fruition, so we're not reliant on the managed team going forward. Some of those will take a number of years. The full impact of the Grow Your Own that we've just talked about will take a number of years. The impact of the international recruitment will take some time as well. So these are medium to longer term solutions, which is why the recommendations are set out as they are. We know we'll need this capacity for another year, but we need to thoroughly review year on year as those other strategies impact.
That was a comprehensive answer there, Councillor Good. Thank you for that. And it's important we have that update today. Councillor Williams is next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. The report highlights vacancy pressures as obviously a big concern, and I welcome the 20 international recruits. However, there have been challenges as highlighted in the report. So I'm just wondering what we're doing to try and overcome those challenges to give them the relevant clearance to enable them to fully participate in their job.
Yeah, so we've got a project for international recruitment, which is chaired by our head of service, Laura Kinsey, and it is a new thing for us, internationally recruiting social workers. So we have engaged a specialist agency to support that process, because it is complex. You have to register with the Home Office to be a sponsoring authority for individuals to be able to gain the necessary clearance from the Home Office in order to be able to work in the UK, and we've done that as a council. We have to make sure that social workers coming into Bridgend are registered before they come into the country. They have to go through that registration process with Social Care Wales. When they come here, we're going to be very focused on really thorough and in-depth induction. These are experienced social workers in the countries from which they're coming, but we are obviously quite different in terms of our legislation and the cultural context. And I really need to emphasise the importance of the pastoral support that they will need moving into Bridgend, and focused on working with partners such as the Health Board, who've got far more experience than us around international recruitment, to learn from them and to access support from them as we do that. So it is a process which takes some time. The numbers it mentions 20 because we've got a contract and we've got an earmarked reserve to support up to 20 to come to Bridgend. At the moment there are 9 en route, so to speak, not actually in the air at the moment, but have accepted job offers from us. And 2 of those, all being well, will be with us by the end of February. And that will be, I think, really good for us just to have 2 to start with, because it gives us an opportunity to get all of the processes and the support right, and then to gradually build up the numbers in our service. So yeah, it's a new thing for us, but I think we are very committed to making it a success and learning from those authorities and other public sector partners where they've managed to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. That's very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, and once again, another encouraging sign of the progress we're making to try and reduce the use of the managed service over the long term. The recommendations have been moved and seconded. I note and welcome the fact that obviously any extensions to the service would be subject to prior approval by Cabinet and Corporate Management Board and consultation with scrutiny chairs. So that mechanism is in place in terms of consultation with Overview and Scrutiny Committee chairs in terms of any changes. Is everyone in agreement with the recommendations, please, colleagues? Yes. Thank you. Thanks very much, Claire, for that and all the work that is going in to make those improvements to workforce in social services is really very much appreciated, and it's really pleasing to see the progress that is being made. The next report we have is a report of the Corporate Director for Education and Family Support, and that is on the appointment of local authority governors, and we will wait for one Cabinet member to leave and another Cabinet member to arrive. And here is Councillor Spanswick, who's joined us, and Councillor Blundell has left the chamber for the benefit of those who are participating virtually. So we will now receive the report of the Corporate Director. Over to you, please, Lindsay.
Thank you, Leader. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Lindsay Harvey. I'm the Corporate Director of Education and Family Support. The purpose of this report, Leader, is to seek approval for Cabinet for the appointment of local authority governors to the school governing bodies listed at paragraphs 4.1 and 4.2 of the report. Leader, at the outset of this report, I would seek Cabinet's approval to amend one section of this report. At paragraph 4.1, a recommendation is made to appoint an individual to the governing body of Ogmore Vale Primary School. I'd advise Cabinet that the advertisement of the vacancy was a result of an administrative error, and I'm no longer able to recommend to Cabinet that the appointment of the governing body goes ahead. It's important to note that this is in no way a reflection on the applicant, whom I thank for their application and understanding in regard to this matter. Therefore, Leader, I apologise for this administrative oversight. In accordance with Council guidance, officers have considered applications received for current vacancies for the local authority governor positions on the school governing bodies as listed in the report. For the 4 current local authority governor vacancies at the 4 schools identified at paragraph 4.1, with the exception of Ogmore Vale Primary School for the reason I've previously stated, The applicants met the approved criteria for the appointments as local authority governor, and there was no competition for these vacancies. Therefore, the recommended appointments are as follows: Councillor Martin Hughes to Plasney Primary School, Mrs Marilyn Williams to Ysgol Bryn Castell, Miss Lisa Salkeld to Pencoed Comprehensive School, and Mr Robert Leake to Archdeacon John Lewis Church of Wales Primary School. There was competition for one vacancy at one school, and the applicants are detailed at paragraph 4.2. The officer panel scrutinised the applications and noted that neither applicant is currently an elected ward member or an elected councillor. While Mr Davis had significant experience within the education sector, Mr Lewis is currently serving as a local authority governor and is the vice chairperson of the governing body of Bryn Terrain Comprehensive School. Therefore, in accordance with council guidance, officers determined that the recommended appointment is Mr Lewis. Therefore, Leader, I take the recommendations of paragraph 9.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Councillor Williams, please. It's a legacy hand, is it? Apologies. Deputy Leader, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. Right, I'm quite happy to second the report as it's already been formally moved. What I would say is that thanks very much to all those that have applied to be school governors. I think it's really important for all of our schools around their governance arrangements and to ensure that we have the best schooling available to our younger constituents, is what I want to say. And I think it's really important that people apply and actually take on the roles. And I would encourage anybody. It's a really worthwhile and fulfilling. I get the opportunity to do all sorts of things that without being a school governor, I would not be able to. Thanks very much, Leader.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader. And I know that other Cabinet members, including Councillor Williams, are also governors. Indeed, Councillor Williams, like you, Deputy Leader, as a chair of governors, and know how satisfying and rewarding you find the role. The recommendations have been moved and seconded with the proposed amendment as outlined by the Corporate Director for Education and Family Support. Is everyone in agreement, please? Aye. Everyone's in agreement. Thank you, colleagues. We will now invite Councillor Blundell to return to the chamber, and I know that Councillor Good has to leave for another commitment, so we will just pause a moment as we welcome Councillor Blundell back into the chamber, and we will now receive the final report of the Corporate Director for Education and Family Support, and that is on the school admissions policy for 2024 to 2025. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Leader. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval for the school admissions policy 2024-2025. You'll be aware, Leader, that the Welsh Government School Admissions Code 2013 imposes requirements on local authorities regarding the discharge of duties in respect to school admissions. As part of the statutory process, the local authority has a duty to consult with stakeholders as identified in the code. This includes the governing bodies of all schools in Bridgend and all neighbouring local authorities. The local authority is required to publish annually an admissions policy and guidance on the admissions arrangements for its schools, and these are duly published on the local authority's website. The policy and arrangements include details of the published admission number, otherwise known as the PAN, for each school in Bridgend for which the local authority is the admission authority. The PAN for a school is the number of pupils that can be admitted to any year group for statutory age pupils. The Bridgend Admissions Forum agreed a draft school admissions policy for 24-25 as per the requirements of the code in September 22. The consultation on the 2024-2025 policy took place with all parties between the 30th of November 2022 and the 6th of January 2023. While no formal responses to the consultation were received, a concern was expressed regarding the policy formalising an increase to the PAN of Caerau Primary School from 45 to 60. As previously noted, the PAN for a school represents the number of pupils that can be admitted to any year group for a statutory school-age pupil. The PAN for each school reflects the outcome of the calculations undertaken in accordance with the capacity assessment as set out in Welsh Government guidance. The background to the proposed increase in the PAN for Cairo Primary School is that the reception year intake for September 2018, the local authority was facing multiple admission appeals by parents whose children had been refused places at the school due to oversubscription. At the appeal hearings, the admission appeal panel was critical of the local authority's application of the PAN for the school of 45 when capacity calculation had resulted in a higher indicated admission number. As a consequence, the panel had recommended the local authority should revisit its decision to refuse the admission and offer places to all the children whose applications had previously been refused. The local authority acknowledged the admission appeals panel's views and decided to adopt a working PAN of 60 for the school, which is supportable given the capacity calculation and the pupil projections in the school. The local authorities continue to adopt the working PAN of 60 in all the subsequent years, as it has been justified given the outcomes of the annual capacity calculations. The local authority now proposes to formalise the PAN as 60 within the proposed school admissions policy for 24-25. The concern expressed in writing, although not a formal consultation response, is important given its context. The concern implies that an increase in the PAN for Cairo Primary School, which is an English medium school, may have a negative impact on the local authority's strategy in the Welsh Education Strategic Plan to grow and promote Welsh medium education. Any increase in English medium places in such circumstances may have a negative impact in terms of applications for Welsh medium school places, particularly in respect of families for whom English medium school is the closest school or of greater capacity and therefore potentially the more convenient school for the parents or carers to access. Leader, as you know, even though the local authority has a very generous school transport policy for offers in Bridgend wishing to pursue a Welsh medium education, many parents, carers may not want their children to travel to access a school place, and therefore by increasing the number of English medium places in the area without a corresponding number of readily accessible Welsh medium places, this may have a detrimental impact on the take-up of Welsh medium places and consequently the Welsh language. Therefore, a Welsh language impact assessment has been carried out, and this is attached at Appendix B. Formalising the increase of the PAN for Cairo Primary School may potentially have a negative impact on Welsh language, as parents, carers may choose to consider a Welsh medium education for their child at one of the local authorities' Welsh medium primary schools. They may instead choose Cairo Primary School instead, as the number of available places is available. Nevertheless, it's important to note that the working PAN arrangement has been monitored annually by officers, and there is no evidence that working to a PAN of 60 at Cairo Primary School since 2018 has reduced the number of pupils applying annually for places at the nearest Welsh medium school, that is, Ysgol Cynnar Sant. However, neither is there evidence that there had been no increase in the working PAN from 45 to 60, that there would not have been more applications to Ysgol Cynnar Sant for Welsh medium school places than to Cairo Primary School for English medium school places. Leader, I can confirm that there are no other substantive changes to the school admissions policy for 24-25 from the 23-24 policy brought to Cabinet in March 2022. Therefore, Leader, I take it the recommendations at paragraph 9.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Councillor Blundell, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just first of all, I'd like to move the report, move the recommendations. I just wanted to say, I think for me, just reiterate the point that, you know, we have the space in Cairo Primary to increase the PAN. I think, you know, we unofficially it has been the PAN of 60 due to the appeals that have gone in later, so we're just formalising that today. I don't see how this will have a detrimental impact on Welsh medium education. All the factors are there to encourage Welsh medium education. We are doubling the number of Welsh medium education places as part of our WESP over the next 10-20 years and expanding that even further. So for me, happily move the report and leave it up to the rest of Cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Blundell. And it is of note that effectively that increase in the PAN is already meant that there are children at the school. So this is not about a change in the future, because those children are already attending that primary school, and I can see that there is in 4.110 there's a statement that there is no evidence of an impact of this on Ysgol Cynnar Sant. So I'm satisfied with that assurance from the corporate director in terms of the impact on Welsh medium education, and recognising and I'm sure you can confirm the corporate director, that we have to also reflect the demand for English medium provision in local schools, and where we can cater for that demand, then we should make every effort to cater for that demand when there is the physical space and capacity to do so. We do have a statutory duty to make efforts to meet that demand, don't we, Corporate Director? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. So that's been moved by the Cabinet Member for Education. Do I have a seconder, please? We have a seconder. Is everyone in agreement with that recommendation? Yes, they are. I am looking round and they are all in agreement. Monitoring Officer. So we will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is consideration of any urgent items. I have had no urgent items that have been presented to me under the Constitution, and therefore we will progress to agenda item 15, which is a proposal to exclude the public from this part of the meeting for a report of the Corporate Director for Community